Hello! What is up, Scrum Masters? Welcome back to this channel. And for those of you who are new to this channel, welcome on board to the community of passionate Scrum Masters. As some of you already learned from my previous video, one of the hats the Scrum Master wears as a true leader who serves is the teacher hat. There are quite a few short explainer Scrum videos already available here on YouTube, but I found many of these videos cut out many of the important parts of Scrum, which quite often misleading people towards mechanical Scrum or zombie Scrum. So in today's video, folks, I would like to explain Scrum according to Scrum Guide 2020, but without cutting out its core principles in only under 7 minutes. So without further ado, here we go. Scrum is a lightweight framework that helps people, teams, and organizations generate value through adaptive solutions for complex problems. As a framework, Scrum is built upon empiricism, where knowledge comes from experience and decision-making is based on what is observed. To put it simply, Scrum is not about making assumptions. Scrum is about validating assumptions. The three legs of empiricism is transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Secondly, Scrum is built upon simplicity and lean thinking, where anything in the whole value stream that does not add value to the customers is considered as waste and should be removed as it only adds overhead and adds complexity. Thirdly, Scrum is built upon self-management and bottom-up collective intelligence, where people are viewed as smart or reliable individuals and empowered to make decisions on who does what, when, and how. As a framework, Scrum consists of 3 accountabilities. Now these are accountabilities, not job titles. Regardless of the person's job title in the company, whoever is accountable for maximizing the value of the product resulting from the work of the Scrum team, and also accountable for effective product backlog management, in the context of Scrum, this person is called the product owner. The product owner is not a scribe or a proxy. They are the owner of the product. Their decision shall be respected by everyone in the company. Whoever is accountable for establishing Scrum as defined in the Scrum Guide and also accountable for the Scrum team's effectiveness in the context of Scrum, this person is called the Scrum Master. And lastly, the group of people who develop the product, regardless of their job title in the company, are called the developers. They are all called developers because Scrum wants to remove silos. The developers are accountable for creating a plan for the sprint, instilling quality into the product as defined in the definition of done, adapting plan each day towards achieving the sprint goal, and holding each other accountable as professionals. Together as one unit, the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the developers are called the Scrum team. The Scrum team is cross-functional, which means they are self-sufficient and have all of the skills needed to develop the product. That does not mean every team member is a generalist. The entire Scrum team has a shared accountability to create a valuable, useful increment every single sprint. When the Scrum team size has more than 10 team members, the team should look into scaling Scrum frameworks such as the Nexus framework, which we don't cover in this video. And in the context of Nexus, there's still one product owner. The Scrum values, that is commitment, courage, focus, respect, and openness, is the soul of Scrum. The Scrum team and everyone in the company who interacts with them live the Scrum values. Without Scrum values, companies oftentimes will end up implementing zombie Scrum or mechanical Scrum. Besides the 3 accountabilities, the Scrum framework also consists of 3 artifacts with its respective commitments and also 5 events to enable empiricism. The product backlog, one of the artifacts in Scrum, is an emergent ordered list of what is needed to improve the product. It has commitment to achieve the product goal. The product backlog is continuously refined from sprint to sprint to increase shared understanding in the Scrum team. The sprint planning is one of the events in Scrum. Product backlog is one of the inputs for sprint planning. The definition of done, previous retrospective commitments, Scrum team's previous sprint's performance should also be brought into the sprint planning. During sprint planning, the Scrum team has 3 main agenda: create the sprint goal, select items from the product backlog that can fulfill that sprint goal, and decompose the selected product backlog items into small work items for developing a usable, valuable increment. The result of the sprint planning is the sprint backlog with sprint goal as its commitment. The sprint backlog is the second artifact in Scrum. After the sprint planning, the developers will work based on the sprint backlog and also the sprint goal. Every day in 15 minutes or less, they will make a small plan for achieving the sprint goal in an event called the Daily Scrum. If the product owner and the Scrum Master are also developing the product, they also join the daily scrum. During daily scrum, the developers may discover the sprint backlog needs to change or the scope of work needs to be reduced than what they have planned during sprint planning. As long as the developers can still fulfill the sprint goal, everyone shall respect and support their decision. The Scrum team is committed to the sprint goal, not to the scope of work. Problem solving should be done after the daily scrum. This is to ensure the daily scrum does not drag more than 15 minutes. Before the end of the sprint, there should at least be one usable and valuable increment. Scrum teams who practice DevOps can deliver multiple releasable increments throughout the sprint. Without any releasable increments every sprint, the value of the product and the progress towards achieving the product goal cannot be measured quantitatively. The increment has a commitment to fulfill every checkbox in the definition of done. As such, the quality of the increment is at a state where it can immediately be released and used by the customers. The increment is the third and last artifact in Scrum, with definition of done as its commitment. The increment is one of the inputs for sprint review. The sprint review is the third event in Scrum. Besides the increment, during the sprint review, the Scrum team and anyone who has a stake or has an interest with the product should inspect the current market conditions, any new opportunities, the remaining budgets, the remaining product backlog, and also the progress towards the product goal. The purpose of sprint review is to gather feedback so the company can remain competitive in the market. The sprint review is not just for demoing the increment or as a phase gate approval event. Feedback that is given during the sprint review and worth implementing can go into the product backlog. However, it is still up to the product owner to decide when that feedback will be implemented by the Scrum team. After the sprint review, the Scrum team will hold the fourth event in Scrum called the Sprint Retrospectives to plan ways to increase the overall product's quality and their effectiveness as a team. Actionable improvements as the result of the retrospectives may be added to the next sprint backlog. Now, all of these activities are wrapped in a container event called the sprint. The sprint is the fifth event in Scrum. All of the 5 Scrum events are time boxed. This is to increase focus and to maintain rhythm. We shall not view the sprint as a mini waterfall, but we should view it as a cadence for planning and pivoting. As multiple increments can be delivered throughout the sprint, the Scrum team is empowered to release the increments to the production environment before the sprint review. So that is the Scrum framework, folks. It is a bare minimum framework to enable empiricism. It is intentionally designed to be incomplete so that you can customize and extend it to your own context. To solve a complex problem, we need a simple framework. Everything else that is not defined in Scrum Guide, such as user story, velocity, burn down chart, planning poker, Kanban, DevOps, user experience, design thinking, Nexus, evidence-based management metrics are considered as complementary practices. These practices can be used with Scrum, but it is not part of Scrum. There are so many complementary practices available out there beyond what I have just mentioned. Your team should inspect and adapt which practices are suitable for their context. Feel free to share today's video to everyone at your workplace to help them understand Scrum better. And I would like to thank you for helping them understand Scrum better. I will see you on my next videos or on my next podcast episode. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Bye now.